Hello to all of you wonderful moms out there. This is episode 87 of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life. I'm your host, Anoki Kapasi, and I'm here to help you envision, plan, and take action on your big ideas so that you can create impact at home and at work. So today I'm going to talk about a really common time management question out there. It's asked by working professionals and stay-at-home moms alike. And that is, what tasks belong on my calendar versus my to-do list? See, have you ever looked at your overflowing calendar and your endless task list and just thought, why does it feel like there's never enough time? When am I even going to get all of this done? When you find yourself super busy and just overwhelmed by everything that's on your plate, it just feels like a big blob of responsibilities, and you're confused about where to start or how to prioritize and what is feasible and not. I know what it's like to feel like your day is just one long to-do list where time flies by and you feel like you don't get much accomplished other than taking care of your kids. Now, most of us would agree that that's the most important task in our lives, so that's a good thing. That is the being a mom part, but sometimes we can't even be fully present for that. So you want to regain control of your day. Find balance and structure, and finally have time for yourself and your goals. So that's why today I'm sharing exactly how to decide what gets scheduled versus what stays on a flexible task list so that you can manage your time more effectively. You can stay organized, and you're going to be able to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. And yes, we're doing this through the lens of time management for moms, where it's going to be realistic, flexible, and kind. We need to be kind to ourselves and show ourselves grace. Get your planners out, and you can probably put today's episode into action in real time. Are you looking for a way to blend success and motherhood without losing sight of who you are? I get it. I've been there too. Hi, I'm Anoki, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of 2 boys. As your life coach, I help moms like you create a life you love at home and at work. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overlooked, and want a clear roadmap to a balanced life, a meaningful career, and finally feeling like yourself again while being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this journey to create the life you truly desire, it's time to rediscover your dreams and achieve your ambitious mom life. Today, we're going to draw from practical distinctions between scheduling and task management, why they work better together, and a few field-tested rules that make it easy for us to implement these things on the fly. So the question is, what tasks should I actually schedule into my calendar versus leaving on a to-do list? Now, I just want to say up front that I go a bit against the grain on this. I basically say that all your tasks should be scheduled into your calendar, whatever that is, whether it's a planner or digital calendar or something else. Now, before I explain why and how, let me just tell you what other people tend to say. They say that if your task is time specific or it is of a certain length in time, then basically those are tasks that can go on your calendar, and that everything else just leave on a task list. That sounds reasonable at first blush, but I have a slightly more decisive approach to scheduling, and the reason I do it the way I do it is because this is how I make sure that nothing falls through the crack. So let's get some definitions out of the way. First, what is a calendar used for? Your calendar basically answers what, when, who, and where. It's the container for time-specific tasks or energy-specific commitments. The what of it is the thing that you're actually doing. The when is the time slot, the window of time when it's going to happen. Who is anybody else that's involved in making sure that thing happens. And where is usually a location or some sort of format like a Zoom link, or it could be a location like a dentist's office or the soccer field. Your calendar must be visual. A visual time block shows you the cost of saying yes, right? So anytime you say yes to something and you put it on your calendar, you actually get to see how much of your day it takes up. It's not abstract anymore. You're not just saying, I have a dentist appointment. You actually see how much time it might take you to drive there and attend the appointment and then leave and get to your next place. You can also see if it overlaps or affects anything downstream. Basically, if it's not visible, then it's not going to be manageable for you. So it needs to be visible. But then, in terms of the format, it can be digital or paper. Now, there are pros and cons to both. Digital calendars are portable, shareable. You can automate recurring events. You can attach reminders like little alarms. You can quickly reschedule things when something changes. You can incorporate color coding and even buffer in preparation time or driving time, for example. The downside is that sometimes your calendar can get really cluttered. If you have a lot of reminders or invitation alerts, then that can also cause a lot of auditory clutter. A paper planner is nice in that it's tactile, it's calming. There's often fewer distractions because you don't have notifications set with any entries. But the downsides are that it's harder to share the calendar information, there's no automated reminders, and sometimes there's a little more friction when rescheduling is involved. So use the format that you'll actually keep up with. It really doesn't matter which one you use. As you heard, they both have pros and cons to them. Now, many moms that I come across love a hybrid system. They use digital calendars for commitments with others so they can share invites for travel, and then they use their paper planners for weekly planning and big picture focus. Personally, when it comes to calendars, I stick with digital only. So then what is a task list? Well, a task list or a to-do list is basically an inventory of all the action items that can be done. The thing is that it basically only indicates the what, and I think of like checkboxes where you are able to show whether the task is done or not done. So you can have checkboxes or cross them out. Well, you're going to think of your task list as a reliable sort of external brain, right? So when things pop up, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. A task list is nice for you to start just collecting that information. It reduces that cognitive load, so you're not really mentally carting that around, especially when these thoughts pop into your head while you're doing other things. Here's the thing. Tasks can vary in complexity. You can have easy tasks or harder tasks. They can vary in length. They can be short tasks, like very quick 1-minute tasks, all the way to very long tasks. They can be shallow effort or really require a lot of focus, like deep work. There's also a spectrum in terms of the priority. They can be urgent tasks and important tasks or low priority tasks. So these distinguishing features really determine whether a task will, 1, even be done in the first place by you, and 2, when they should be done. Often your task list doesn't actually indicate much more than the what and whether it's been done. Now, this is where most people make a distinction. They say a task can either be entered into your calendar if it meets certain criteria, and if not, just leave it on your list. Isn't that confusing? Because some tasks go on a calendar, but then I have a random list of less important tasks or things that can be completed in maybe just a few minutes, and so I don't have to put it into my calendar. Well, then how do I know when I have to do those? Guys, that is why things don't end up getting done. That's when things start falling through the cracks. We think maybe they're not important or they'll just take a couple minutes, and then before we know it, we have a big long task list again of things that we never got done. First of all, most people never even stop to check why they're even doing the task. Because if they did, they would find out that some of these tasks do not even add any value to their lives. They have no idea why they're doing it. There are tasks on your to-do list that can actually just be eliminated. And as I said, they also leave this task list of to-dos with no specified time slot to actually get those things done. Having a task list is helpful because you're able to capture ideas and you reduce that mental load. When you schedule something in, you're actually protecting time for that thing to get done. That is how we honor commitments, and that is how you're going to be able to align your time with things that are important to you. So you only do tasks that are important. If they're not important, why are you even doing it? And then, if it's important, it should go on your calendar. And by going on your calendar, important tasks turn into inevitable tasks. Essentially, they're destined to get done. When something is on the calendar, you're making that promise to your future self and everyone affected that by that time, that thing will get done. And so that is why I say that all of your tasks should be scheduled. So I've talked about the Zeigarnik effect before, and that's where a task or a goal that you've started is more likely to get done than one that you haven't. And it applies in this case because when you have a task that pops into your mind and you actually take the time to put it into a task list or get that task onto your calendar, that is like opening up a loop in your brain that this task has started, that it's on its way to getting done, versus one that you haven't offloaded into any sort of reliable system. So that is why I have a 3-step framework for helping you to schedule your tasks. Now, it is a sort of prioritization framework that I call the IDEA framework. And the way it works is that the first step is identifying tasks that you want to put onto your to-do list. Now, there isn't a real system for this per se because the tasks pop into your mind in a sort of unorganized fashion, right? When you think of them, however, you do want to have a reliable way of capturing that information so that it's not hanging over your head. And if you want some information on how you can organize tasks and other types of information, I have an episode that I'm going to link in the show notes about information management systems. So some examples of tasks that you might put on your to-do list are to attend a friend's birthday party, finish a report for work, or buy groceries for the week. The I&D from IDEA is identifying tasks to put onto your to-do list. Next, step 2, we want to eliminate those that aren't in alignment with you. That is, they don't move you towards your vision, they're not important to you in some way, or are not even aligned with your values. So to do this, it's probably best to have a life plan. If this is your first time listening in, a life plan clearly articulates your purpose, your vision, your values, your goals, and things like that. When you have clarity on what it means for you to be living your authentic life, one of significance, then you can actually use that definition to optimize even day-to-day decisions and tasks. So what you want is to only engage in tasks that are aligned with your purpose, your values, your goals, the ones that move you towards your vision and a meaningful life. You can do this alignment without a life plan, but with a life plan, you can systematically filter and eliminate tasks that don't serve your values, vision, or mission. So what you would do is cross-check each task against your life plan elements. If a task doesn't align with at least one element, then it basically becomes a candidate for elimination. And I have a whole system on how you can get things off your plate like that with a tool I call the focus funnel. This process is a strategic way that you can start creating space for your priorities and things that truly matter. This is how you're going to reclaim some time and energy for activities that move you closer to your goals, not ones that you're doing because they showed up on your task list, because somebody said you had to do them. You get to decide, is this important for me to do? Why would I want to do this? And by removing the misaligned obligations, you transform your schedule. So listen, guys, your life has meaning, but you might feel like you're not there yet. That path forward isn't always clear to us, but that's the clarity that comes after just one life planning session with me. That's the self-discovery assessment step, which is a series of guided, reflective questions and prompts that allows me to identify those gemstones that are hidden in the rough of your chaotic lives right now. So together, we can learn about things like your core values, your passions, your strengths and preferences. And then from there, I can actually help you create that personalized roadmap that's going to help you align your time, energy, decisions with what actually matters to you. We actually have a really good time doing it. I mean, really, my clients tell me about how much fun life planning is for them. So you see, you don't have to do this alone. The first step is so simple. Let's just have a chat about how to design a life that actually fits you. No pressure. It's just a genuine conversation where you can explore what life planning is all about in my particular system, which is based on science-inspired methodology. So book your free 30-minute exploratory call and then let's map out your next chapter together, because you really deserve a life plan that's going to work for your life, not cluttered with meaningless tasks all day long. So at this point, you have a list of tasks. You've eliminated the tasks that don't align with you by cross-checking it with your life plan, or if you have some other way of prioritizing, then you can use that. And now we're on to the third step. And the third and last step of the IDEA framework is to ask, does this require me to be there at a specific time, in a specific state, or environment? So what constitutes a yes? if it requires a specific time, and by that I mean you have to be there at a specific time. The thing has to happen at a specific time, like an appointment. Let's say 9 a.m. on Monday, November 3rd. Or it could be that the task requires a specific length of time. Like I need 1 hour to get this report done. So the duration, especially longer duration tasks, are things that need to go into your calendar. Now, that is something that a lot of people miss. They have these tasks listed out on their to-do list. They have no idea on how long these tasks are going to take, especially relative to each other. So it's a really good idea to have an estimate of how long these tasks will take. By getting it into your calendar, you're forced to make that estimate. Also related to time is urgency. It implies that it's high priority or important. It has to happen by a certain time. And really urgent things have to happen immediately. So you definitely want to get those into the calendar. So you don't want to leave it for a task list where it then gets hidden and in the end may not even end up on your calendar in time or even at all. So getting all the tasks that remain on your task list onto your calendar always is what's going to keep that task visible and protected. Another reason why you'd want to schedule a task immediately onto your calendar is if it has to occur at a specific location or it's an event. Let's say a dentist appointment is not only time specific, but it's location bound. You have to be at a specific place. That kind of information, the where, is stuff that you can put into the calendar event. You might even need to enter the exact address in there so you know how to drive there. Having it on a task list, again, hides all of that pertinent information. You also want to take the tasks that require a certain level of energy and put that onto your calendar. Because if you have to be in a particular mental state for that task to be done, you really do need that to be on the calendar. Like having a deep work time block is very energy specific. You need to focus, you need it to be quiet, you need to be able to start and keep working for a certain length of time. You don't want to break that concentration or line of thinking. So those constraints make it very much a calendar item. You don't want it to just be on some sort of wish list, which is your to-do list. Very complex tasks also require a lot of energy. Sometimes very complex tasks, not just mentally, but like logistically, would require coordination with other people. Those are things that you want to put onto your calendar, one, so that it's shared with other people, but also so you have all the details put into one convenient spot and you know exactly when you plan to do that. So here's some concrete examples of things you commonly see on a calendar. Birthday party, 3 to 5 p.m. at the park. You would say whose it is, where it is, and when. That's definitely a calendar item. Maybe a doctor's appointment, Tuesday at 9:20 a.m., right? That's a fixed location and time. Plus, you might even want to factor in some buffer time for traveling, okay? That's really great to have on your calendar. Maybe you have a deep work block in the morning where your mind is freshest. So from 9 to 11, you get that sort of high-level thinking done. Maybe you set it for a weekly event on Thursdays. Well, that requires a lot of high focus. You don't want interruptions. It's very energy specific, and so it's on your calendar. Okay, but what about the tasks that are on your task list that don't really fit any of those things? So if the answer is no to that question of, does it require me to be there at a specific time, specific location, or specific state of mind, then you still need to have it on a task list, okay? But then, this is the crucial difference now from what other people do versus what I'm suggesting you do. You need to assign those tasks to a time block. You put it into the most relevant time block, because when you do that, you are now associating a specific action and a specific time estimate. Now, I've talked about time blocking before. I'll link that episode. But time blocks are basically when you take your day and you divide it into chunks of time blocks. And each time block basically has a theme. So here are some time blocks that show up on my calendar. I have a family time block. I have a homeschooling block. I have a work block. I have a very short morning block where I do my morning routine, and I have a short evening block where I do my wind down. A time block then consists of a bunch of tasks that you try to get done within that time block. And so the remaining tasks on your task list can still stay sort of like a bulleted list or a checkbox list, but you need to take them and assign them into a specific time block so that they end up on your calendar. So my calendar has a bunch of very specific tasks and events and things where the details of the what, when, where, who type of information is in there. That task has its own invitation or event indicated on the calendar. But then I also have labeled time blocks where I don't see all the tasks that are in there unless I click on it on my digital calendar. And when I do that, then I see all the things I plan to get done on that particular time block. Now, my time blocks are the same every day. My homeschooling happens every day from Monday to Fridays at the same time. But the tasks I get done in there, for example, the different subjects, are different on different days. The same thing happens with my work block. I actually explained how I get all of my work done in 2.5 hours every day. So if you want to understand how my time block for work is set up, I'll link that episode as well. I like to think of my time blocks as little mini checklists that end up on my calendar. So here's some more practical examples. Let's say you want to work out. Well, it can actually fit any time slot that matches your preference. So maybe you're taking a class. Well, then you would want to enter the time and the location. So like 6 a.m. at whatever studio. That's its own event on the calendar. But let's say you have a morning block, and as part of your morning time block, you include a workout every day, and maybe you rotate through different workouts. Well, in that case, you might want to just have it as a task inside your time block. Maybe your task is to finish a report for work. Well, let's say it's due by Friday at noon, and you're going to have to put in 2 hours of deep work this week in order for it to get done on time. Well, then maybe you have a deep work time block already marked off on your calendar. Well, that block then should include your 2 hours of report generation. Let's say you buy groceries for the entire week. I think of this as a task. It's a recurring task. So what I do is I have a specific time block when I would either order my groceries or go to the grocery store and get it. Let's say my kids have to finish lesson 21 from their phonics curriculum. Well, then I would actually have that as a task in my time block for homeschooling. And let's say I only do phonics on Wednesdays. That would be in Wednesday's homeschooling time block then. I hope this is starting to make sense, especially with the examples that I'm giving. Now, a really quick heuristic that many moms tend to love is that if it takes less than 15 minutes, it's probably something that's just going to be on a task list that you're going to batch into some sort of time block. Even if it's 1 minute, it should be on your calendar, but as a task. But if it's longer, then you're probably going to need a little more focus in making it its own task on the calendar. Now, that isn't a strict rule. You may come across exceptions to that rule. As a bonus, I'm going to actually add on some pro tips. So the first one is that the items on your task list still require a time estimate, okay? So let's say you have a time block for work, but then in there you have like 10 items in there. Not all of the items are going to take the same amount of time. Maybe you have a 3-hour work block, but 5 of those items take 2 hours each. Well, clearly you're not going to get all those tasks done in that time block. But you wouldn't have known that had you not put in the estimates. So then you can take the tasks that you think you can get done in your 3-hour work block and take the rest and assign it to the next work block that you have. And the next tip is to use buffers between your time blocks and calendar items. Now, I've talked about this before. I really think that buffers are such a key strategy for moms in particular because our schedules tend to be chaotic. Even with my work life, I work with really busy moms. And so their schedules are chaotic. So therefore, my work schedule often can be chaotic with meetings and things getting pushed around. So it's not just in my personal life. I have to be able to adapt to any changes and rescheduling, but also sometimes a task that I start takes a little longer. Maybe I want to go deeper in it, or maybe I'm learning something that I didn't realize would actually take me a little longer. Having a buffer gives me the space to get what I need done without feeling like I'm going to destroy the rest of my schedule in the process. Now, this one is kind of a bit of a cautionary tip where I would say you should limit how far out you tend to schedule some of your tasks. These are the tasks that are time block tasks, right? Tasks that are events, they're kind of a sure thing in a sense. Those, if you know that there's going to be some event 3 months down the road, by all means, go ahead, put that on your calendar. You'll want to know that. But if you start assigning the tasks that go in your time blocks very far out, chances are by the time you get to that point, your schedule is going to look very different or your tasks are going to look different. So I tend to assign the tasks into my time blocks basically on a weekly basis. I spend about 15 minutes every week organizing my next week. And then during that time, one of the things I do is assign out my tasks into time blocks. The next pro tip is to use visual markers that can really aid you. Color code things if possible. You can do this in paper-based planners, right? Using highlighters, for example. You can also assign colors in digital calendars. This is what I do. So I use multiple calendars, and they each have a different color. And so events that fall into that calendar will show up with that color. And I've sort of trained myself now to recognize what types of tasks fall into which color. So there's a couple benefits to this. When you're looking at everything at a glance, you can see, this day feels like a very work-heavy day, or this day is a very family-heavy day, right? Also, at least in the digital calendars, you can click calendars on and off, right? So let's say I just want to see what my week looks like at work. Then I can unclick all the other calendars, and all I will see now is my blue color-coded work week. As part of your color coding, it's nice to also have a color that's assigned to just high priority tasks. These can be your non-negotiables, your top priorities, the ones that you might have identified in your life plan, for example. Mine are always assigned red, but it's just really great to have a nice color that pops for high priority items, because sometimes your calendar can look a little jammed, and by having a prominent color, you can easily, in a quick glance, identify where your priorities fall into your day and your week. And the last pro tip is to use automations when possible. When you're doing automations, it's better to have it done digitally, and that's partially why I like having a digital calendar. You can automate recurring events, but also automate things like notifications or even changes to the schedule. So if I shift one event, I can have my calendar adjust accordingly for all the other events. Okay, so to recap, your task list is a way of gaining peace of mind because you're getting these thoughts that pop in your head and you're putting it somewhere reliable. Your calendar is what's securing you focused time to actually get those tasks done. Because of that, I combine having a task list and a calendar. I think they're both really important. But where I differ from the convention is that I recommend all the items on your task list end up in your calendar in one way or the other. Now, to decide whether that task ends up as its own event in your calendar versus as a mini task list inside a time block on your calendar, you can use my 3-step idea framework. The first is identifying the tasks that should be on your to-do list. 2 is to eliminate those that are not in alignment with your life plan. And then the third step is to ask yourself, does this require me to be there at a specific time or in a specific state of mind or environment? So the tasks that end up as their own events on your calendar are going to have time-specific, location-specific, and maybe even some energy-specific details. And then everything else basically ends up as tasks within a time block. Just don't forget that inside there, you are specifying what the action needs to be and an estimate of how long you think it's going to take. Now, you guys know that I'm a real fan of taking small actions where possible. Getting over the hump of the first step just makes everything feel so much more possible. I want you to take your to-do list from today, whatever's on your to-do list. And for each item, just ask that prompt. Does this require me to be there at a specific time, location, or state of mind? And move those qualified ones over to your calendar now. And for everything else that remains, figure out the next action, like a verb and a simple duration. Outline the intro for my report, 25 minutes. And you've basically just clarified your day. Now, obviously, there are some other things I talked about, like figuring out which tasks you should even do in the first place, and also putting those other tasks into a time block. But for now, this short little exercise, I think, is going to really help you clarify your day. So I'm cheering you on. I want you to protect your time, honor your priorities, and go achieve your ambitious mom life. I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and tell other purpose-driven mamas about it. Who knows? You might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. I'll see you next week for another episode of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life with Anoki Kapasi.